In this video, I'm going to show how your player can separate himself among the other varsity high school baseball players. I'm going to show you step by step the processes that I would take if I was in your player's shoes. These are the types of lessons that I wish I knew before I landed that D1 scholarship and before my 7-year professional baseball career. I've definitely learned some valuable lessons along the way, and I'm here to share them with you. And if you found this video helpful and you want your player to play in college, go ahead down below in the description and book a call with me. On that call, we can see if we're a good fit for each other inside my Mendoza Baseball Academy. All right, let's get started. So this is going to be how your player can separate himself from all the other competition out there in high school baseball. Obviously, there's a ton of competition out there, and you want your player to be the best. All right, I'm going to change up this the weight of this brush so it's not too big, but you want your player to be number one, just like all the other parents out there, and all the other players also have that competitive fire in them as well. All right, so really step number one in separating yourself, it's going to be not the sexiest topic ever, but we're going to be developing great habits. All right, habits are what create the professional baseball players, the elite of the elites, the Hall of Famers, right? Doing these habits every single day are going to is what's going to ultimately help not only your player out, but developing these out. It doesn't matter if he wants to become a lawyer or a doctor one day. These are the habits that no matter what he wants to do in the world, these are the things that are essential. All right, so things like obviously building out a routine is obviously very, very important. But we're not going to be talking about that. That's not necessarily a habit, right? We want to be talking about things like, accountability, because accountability is huge. To be able to be one with your word, right? Your word's your bond. And I would take it another level, really. What you say that you're going to do, not only do you have to do it, but you have to do it with the right intent as well. So, accountability is huge. One thing that I like to hit on a lot is the idea of extreme ownership, which is similar to accountability. But extreme ownership, the way that I like to perceive that is we're owning everything that happens in my baseball career. And this is the way that I viewed the game for my 7 years of pro ball, 3 years of college ball at the D1 level. If I made a bad throw, obviously it was on me. If I made an error, obviously it was on me. But I really like to take it to another level. Even when something didn't necessarily happen that I had control over, I always think that I'm the one to blame. And that's a good habit, believe it or not. If there's a ground ball to the second baseman and I'm playing short, and let's say there's a lefty up and I didn't communicate with him before the pitch saying that there was a curveball coming or something that could have been hit in the 3-4 hole, I should have communicated that. That's on me. I own that I made a mistake. I didn't communicate properly with that second baseman, and that's why the second baseman wasn't able to make the play or made an error. All right, so I take ownership in every event possible, and I think that's a great habit for not only you, but also your player to start developing every single day. Next up is the idea of just showing up, all right, every day. A lot of people will just refer to this as the consistency that it takes to become great, right? Nothing in this world that's worth doing is going to come overnight, right? You have to do it day after day after day, right? And showing up every single day is the key component or the habit that we need to start developing sooner rather than later. And I know a lot of your players out there are working hard just about every single day, but it's not necessarily just all about showing up. And it's not only about that extreme ownership or the accountability. It's really about knowing what to do. All right? This is where the education side of things come in, right? These things should be enough, right? Accountability, making sure you're showing up every single day, you're working hard. These are all great habits, and that should be okay for the majority of players. But again, we don't really want to be an average baseball player, and I'm going to hit on that in a second. This is where the education of knowing truly what to do makes all the difference. I can't stress that enough. You can't just, show up and not know what to do, or just you're going through the motions, this is also one of the best things to really separate yourself, is just the deep core belief of, not necessarily even the belief, the deep core understanding of what's going on. That's going to help you and your player throughout the long run. All right, so these are some habits that I think are just super valuable to understand, and this is where I like to visualize it. I'm definitely a visual learner, and this is one of my teaching styles inside my academy. But I went ahead and drew a graph for you to visualize how truly to separate yourself and what an average baseball player in high school is going to be looking like, right? So I went ahead and drew the graph of the average high school baseball player, and as you can tell, I went ahead and labeled little league, middle school, high school, NCAA, meaning just like any level of college ball, and then pro ball. Obviously, the average baseball player, there's going to be an inflection point right there where not many high school baseball players get to play in college right here. I think it's only about 7% of high schoolers get to play in the college across all levels, and only 2% go on to the D1 level. All right, so very, very small fraction of people that get the opportunity to play in college. All right, so as far as a below average baseball player, that's going to be anything under this average line, right? These are going to be the below average baseball players. And obviously there's a tiny percent that go to college and even pro ball, right? Next up, I really want to go over where the world's top prospects are, right? The world's top prospects, because at the end of the day, we need to start to realize baseball is a world sport, right? There's players like Ohtani coming from Japan. There's great talent every single day coming from Mexico, Venezuela, Dominican, Colombia, Puerto Rico. You have to start understanding the game is worldwide. So you're not only competing against these high school players, but you're really truly competing against every single 15, 16, 17-year-old out there. And this is a message that hopefully you can start to express to your player, for them to really understand that how much hard work it truly takes. So as far as like the world's top prospects, in Little League, they can usually tell that they're pretty good. So they've kind of got off to a great start, right? Just because of their talent. When in reality, a lot of the times, especially these players in the DR, they work extremely hard at a young age. So they've already separated themselves, right? And that's the separation that I just, put a couple lines. In between Little League and middle school, maybe there's a couple of ups and downs, but again, these are the habits that the top prospects understand. Like we mentioned, the consistency, showing up every single day, knowing what to do. This is where they have the competitive advantage, and you can see any downfalls are really, really minor. They're not as big as, let's say, these downfalls right here for your typical high school baseball player, and you can see these small ones, they don't last as long because they know how to recover from it. In between middle school and high school, this is probably where I'd say a lot of international players go a little bit higher, because that's when they truly start to take it serious. Like middle school and high school years, this is when they realize that they can get out, right? They can get a big chunky signing bonus, that they can take care of their family. They can, rescue their family from, a lot of the times it's third world countries, right? In between high school and college, a lot of these international players and the top prospects in the world, especially high school prospects, they'll go straight into pro ball. So usually in between high school and pro ball, this is where they go up and to the right like no other, right? So these are the world's, again guys, I can't stress that enough, the world's top prospects. That's not necessarily where your player is currently at, and I'm going to go over that in a second, but this is where the world's top prospects are right now. As far as where your player is currently at, right? Or actually, sorry, not red. Your player is blue. Let's go ahead and change that. So your player is probably somewhere around the average line, right? And I'm not going to necessarily generalize, because obviously I don't know where your player is currently at, but I would hope that your player is somewhere in between average and the world's top prospect, definitely probably closer to an average baseball player, right? So I would say your player is somewhere right here where they're currently at high school, and we don't know if the player is going to go up or down. We don't know if your player is going to go up or down. It's really going to be hard to tell. And realistically, what we're doing in that time frame is going to reflect if we're going up and to the right or if we're staying neutral. But I don't really believe in staying neutral. We're really either going up or down, right? And then obviously, because we know that 7% go to college and 2% go D1, right? We know that there's not a huge chance or a huge opportunity to play college baseball. All right. So that's going to be something that we just need to always, always, always understand. And hopefully your player has the opportunity to play in college. So maybe he's above average right here. He's still not going to be, necessarily a top prospect if he's doing anything productive right here. Maybe he's just scrolling on his phone a little bit too much throughout the day. He's watching too much Netflix, playing too many video games, watching too many streamers. So ultimately, this is the time where also, again, I want to talk from my experience of playing professional baseball and then also college baseball at the D1 level. A lot of times, these top prospects in high school start to go down and to the right because they're exposed to college, they're exposed to partying, they don't know how to time manage. So it's very, very difficult for them to be productive, right? So a lot of the times, I'm speaking just generally, a lot of the times you're going down to the right. Once you get to that college level right here, that's when ultimately players will level out and probably not make pro ball, right? The idea, obviously, is again in that inflection point. We have this couple of years, really. It's in between, really, like your sophomore and senior years of high school. If we're developing these right habits, like I mentioned on the previous slide, this is going to give us the best opportunity to go, maybe slightly up and to the right. Again, if you see that this is a huge gap, that's great because that gap is truly the separator. All right. That separator is hard work right here. It's not hard work over here after the fact. It's not hard work during the fact, right? It's hard work before the fact right here in this inflection point, all right? So this is going to be one of the most important topics that I like talking about is, truly putting in that work. A lot of the times it's just referred to as the off season, right? But champions are truly made in the off season. And I'm not saying, the New York Yankees through that crazy stretch, they worked harder than everyone else, but they truly did have that momentum that helped them become the Yankees that everyone knows and loves, right? Yankees are traditionally good. That's going to stir up the comments, that's for sure. But right here, guys, back to the video. I really just want to talk about this area right here. What kind of habits are we creating, and what is our trajectory going to look like after the fact, right? Because we're either going up or we're either going down. We're either progressing or we're either regressing, right? And then hopefully we have the opportunity for your player. Once we have this opportunity to play pro ball, we have the possibility to keep developing, right? So as you can tell, when we get to pro ball, there's a huge separator. And over here, really there's, little league, middle school, there's a lot of below average baseball players. But here, think about it, there's not that many pro baseball players, so we truly have to find new avenues to separate ourselves. So as you can tell, like, your player's probably not a world top prospect, and that's okay. But hopefully your player has the opportunity right here during his high school years, I would say sophomore, junior, and senior years, to really develop his routine, develop his habits. These are the things that ultimately matter a ton, all right? So how your player can become a top prospect, all right? So step number one is to build a routine, all right? This is vital in the overall development, but really building a routine with these habits that we just discussed for a physical routine for the physical side of the game, guys. Baseball is very physical, and without putting any priorities in the physical side of things, we're going to lose track of what's really important, becoming the best baseball player in the world, right? If we have control of what we're doing throughout the entire day, which we do, we're just not necessarily voting with our time the things that we truly care about. And if we truly care about getting better at baseball, we're going to vote with our time, again, to the things that we truly value and the goals that we've set out for ourselves. All right. So step number two is what I just like to refer to as the compete section, and this is going to look like your mentality, making sure that that is up and up to par. The compete side of things, this is where we're making sure that we have developed a drive for the game, also referred to as like a fire burning. These are all just different ways of basically saying how well do we compete with ourselves. Like obviously it's important to compete against the other team. That's why we love to play the game. It's also important to compete against our own teammates, but realistically, competing with ourselves is the unlock, right, to separating ourselves to become a top prospect. So if your player wants to become a top prospect and he doesn't have the drive, and maybe you have too much drive, this is where we need to start kind of understanding, again, in that graph, at that inflection point, are we going up? Are we going down, right? Step number three is one of the ones that I love to talk about a lot. It's making sure that we're structured into what we're doing. All right, so this is really only reserved for the best. All right, and I'll explain that in a second what I mean by that. And this is really where we're refining everything that we're doing, right? So we've probably already done step one. We've already built out a routine. We're already getting into the flow of physical development. We've already checked off step number two. We're already in that competitive mindset. We have that drive. No one else is really pushing ourselves rather than, the player. The player themselves are the ones that pushing themselves. Step number three, again, guys, only reserved for the best players that truly want to play at the next level. This is when we're going to refine it. And I have an ice sculpture example, all right? So I'm going to go and explain that to you right now, and it's going to further explain what that step number three is for you and your player, all right? So this is when we get to refine your player's structure, okay? So this is an ice sculpture, right? And ultimately, we're building an ice sculpture for your player, right? And I promise this is all going to wrap up together real quick, but this is, again, the refining section of the structure. So at first, I don't know if you guys know ice sculptures. I don't really know too much, but I've watched a couple of videos where at first they have like basically this big, chunky, piece of, whatever, ice, right? Maybe I'll put it in white, all right? So they have this big chunky piece of white just like that, all right? And then they use their chainsaw to kind of mold the general shape of the object, right? So this looks like it might be like a dolphin or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, right? So a lot of the bulk work is being done by this chainsaw, which is awesome, right? So that's kind of where your player is currently at. He's been doing a lot of the bulk work, a lot of the big stepping stones as far as what I just mentioned, the step one, step two. He's got that drive. He's got, he's developed out a routine for his physical development. But now this is the time where we need to really focus on how much do we value refining it. So, of course, if you are an ice sculpture and you're basically a judge, right? You're the parent of a player. If an artist, I really don't know what they're called, but let's say you're an artist. Are you okay with just delivering the final product with a chainsaw, right? Because it's probably going to have some jagged edges, right? It might not necessarily look the prettiest. It's not going to have those really, really detailed, I don't even know what to call it, but that ice sculpture is not going to be super detailed, right? It's just going to be like a blob that kind of looks like a dolphin, kind of not, right? So we have this opportunity right now to refine your player's structure, right? By using, like a toothpick, right? I don't really know what it's called, but I did a little bit of research before making this video. This is where we can refine those tiny little details, and ultimately those tiny little details of making sure we're on a baseball specific program, not just a program, written out maybe by your player from social media or maybe even my own videos. This is where we really get into a good structure, right? This toothpick, again, is the idea of refining the structure that your player already has, refining his mental development, his baseball IQ. These are all the very, very important aspects of playing not only college baseball. I'm pretty sure that your player has dreams and aspirations of playing professional baseball as well. If you guys don't refine that structure sooner rather than later, there's going to be, I don't want to say consequences, but there's going to be, a time where you guys have that not necessarily inflection point, but it's going to be more or less a reflection point. We're going to be looking back at that inflection point saying, what could we have done differently? And I don't want that to happen to you or your player, all right? So this is where we refine our structure and we become the best baseball player we can possibly be. Now, if your player is in that step 3 and you guys are looking to refine his overall structure, down below in the description, check out my triple play, where I will help install a custom player development system for your player to increase his overall structure within 14 days or less. After you've learned about the triple play, make sure to book a call with me. I will assess where your player is currently at, where he's trying to go, and what immediate changes I would recommend. That way he can develop even quicker. My academy is only for varsity high school baseball players. So again, make sure to book a call with me to get started. Find your overall. You guys are looking to refine your step 3 and you guys are looking to refine your overall structure. That player is currently at, what he could do to curl 3, and you guys are looking to. Down below in the description, check out my triple play, where I will install a custom player development system for your player in 14 days or less.